Welcome to a new deep dive into the latest cybersecurity intelligence on Vuln Vibes. Today, we're dissecting a pretty significant vulnerability. It's in React Router, that library basically everyone using React relies on.
Yeah, it's a big one. We're talking CVE-2025-31137. Researchers Rachid and Yasser Allam found this one.
And their work really highlights how this specific flaw, it can expose web apps to cache poisoning and even a bypass attacks. That's a trend we're definitely seeing more of, right?
Absolutely. And what's really noteworthy here, especially for our listeners, is just the scale. React Router has massive adoption. We're talking over 13 million weekly downloads, supposedly.
Wow, 13 million. So that means the potential attack surface for this CVE is, well, it's broad. A huge number of web apps could be affected.
Exactly. And the researchers specifically called out users of Remix version 2 and React Router version 7, but only if they're using the Express adapter. That's the immediate group impacted here.
Okay, all right, so let's dig into the technical side a bit. The vulnerability, like the report says, it's really about how that Express adapter for React Router handles certain HTTP headers, the host, and the X-forwarded host headers. Seems like it's not quite cleaning them up properly.
Yeah, insufficient sanitization. That's the crux of it. And the fundamental risk that this lack of cleaning introduces is that attackers can basically manipulate the URL that the application thinks it's serving. They can inject arbitrary path segments, usually through the X-forwarded host header.
Why that header specifically? The report mentioned the host header too?
Well, yeah, you can use the host header, but manipulating that often gets blocked or, just throws errors at reverse proxies or CDNs. Those are super common setups. The X-forwarded host header, though, is often passed through more readily by those systems, making it a more effective vector for attackers in many real-world scenarios, according to the report.
Ah, right. So because of how infrastructure is set up, X-forwarded host is often the path of least resistance. So, okay, attackers can craft a different URL as far as the backend application sees it. How does that, translate into actual attacks? What should people be watching out for?
Well, the most direct hit is cache poisoning denial of service, CPDOS. Basically, by sending requests with these manipulated headers and maybe messing with response codes, an attacker can trick the cache, like a CDN or even a browser cache, into storing a bad version of a page.
So, poisoning the well, everyone who asks for that page later gets the bad, possibly broken or malicious version instead of the real one.
Exactly. It disrupts availability, hence the denial of service part. People can't access the real content.
Okay, that makes sense. And then there's the WAF bypass angle. The report suggested this header trick could help attackers sneak past web application firewalls. How would that work?
Yeah, this is kind of clever. The researchers suggest attackers could potentially split their malicious payload. Part of it goes in the normal URL path, and the other part gets tucked into that vulnerable X-forwarded host header.
Splitting the attack.
Right. So if the WAF is just looking for known bad patterns in one place, like the URL path, it might miss the full attack because it's broken up across the URL and the header. It's like trying to slip something past security by hiding parts of it in different bags.
Sneaky. Okay, and the report also mentioned something about escalating reflected XSS to stored XSS through this caching mechanism. Can you walk us through that?
Sure. So imagine an attacker uses this header manipulation to inject some malicious JavaScript, right? Normally, reflected XSS is temporary. It only affects the person whose request included the malicious code.
Right, it bounces off the server.
But if the application's cache is poisoned with that malicious script embedded in the page because of the header trick, then that temporary reflected attack suddenly gets saved. It becomes stored in the cache.
Oh, I see. So now anyone who requests that cache page gets hit with the XSS, not just the attacker.
Precisely. It turns a one-off reflected attack into a persistent stored one, amplifying the risk significantly.
Okay, wow. That's a nasty escalation path. So the crucial bit now, the fix. The good news is the researchers confirm this has been patched, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. The report is clear. This vulnerability is addressed in the latest releases. Specifically, Remix version 2.16/3 and React Router version 7.4.1.
So for anyone listening using Remix 2 or React Router 7 with that Express adapter.
You need to update immediately.
Yeah.
Upgrading to those patched versions is the essential mitigation step. It closes this vulnerability.
Got it. So check your versions, folks. If you're on Remix or React Router with Express, especially versions before 2.16/3 or 7.4.1 respectively, update now. This isn't theoretical, it's live, but thankfully there's a fix.
Yeah, and this whole incident, it really highlights a broader trend. Attackers are definitely getting smarter about poking at these less obvious surfaces, like how frameworks handle HTTP headers.
It's not always the flashy SQL injection, is it?
No, sometimes it's these subtle interactions between components. This React Router issue is a really potent reminder that even super popular, widely trusted libraries can have these critical weaknesses hidden away.
Yeah.
It forces us to question, how does this underlying code handle untrusted input like headers?
Totally. So just to quickly recap, CVE 2025-31137 and React Router's Express adapter, bad sanitization of host and, more critically, X-forwarded host headers leads to URL manipulation.
Which enables cache poisoning denial of service, potential wave bypass by splitting payloads, and escalating reflected XSS to stored XSS via the cache.
And the fix. Update. Get on Remix 2.117.3 or React Router 7.4.1 if you're using the Express adapter. It's resolved there.
Definitely. And maybe this prompts a wider thought for everyone listening. What other dependencies in your stack rely on headers? Are you sure how they handle potentially manipulated host or X-forwarded headers or, other potentially problematic ones?
Good point. It's a reminder about the implicit trust we place in these components.
Yeah.
This case really drives home the need for ongoing vigilance, right? Even with the big established players. What other subtle header tricks might be lurking elsewhere in our stacks? Something to think about.